Are your hormones all over the place? Are you maybe perimenopausal or at some stage during menopause and you just don't feel like yourself? Because if that's you, you're in absolutely the right place. Because today I'm talking to the absolutely brilliant Carly Fry. And I'm going to hand over straight over to you, Carly, for some fantastic hints and tips.
Thank you so much. It is so nice to be here. Although I am going to be completely honest, I'm quite nervous. But hopefully once I get going, we can have a good little slot of time.
Your
So
nerves are welcome.
so before we start talking about any kind of sort of habit building, I think it's really important to acknowledge what perimenopause and menopause can actually feel like for some women, because it can be just so much more challenging than ever expected. And I think, especially, historically, it's not something that's really been spoken about that much. Thankfully, we are having a few more conversations now, but essentially, it often arrives at a time when life already feels pretty challenging. So we have got multiple responsibilities, which we are already juggling. So things like careers and families and relationships, caring for children. Sometimes we might also have the other end of the spectrum where our parents might be aging. And obviously, as well, just kind of running, general household home things too. So, there are a lot of balls that we are juggling all at once. Then hormone change comes in just to, throw it into the mix, and everything can just feel a whole load more challenging. And as a result, many women tell me that they just don't quite recognize themselves anymore. So there may be symptoms like fatigue, poor sleep, brain fog, anxiety, low mood, weight changes, hot flushes, reduced confidence, loss of get my words out, motivation. The list is endless essentially. But for some people, one of the most difficult things is that feeling of not being quite in control anymore, and just feeling out of sorts, not feeling like yourself. And that definitely has been the case for me. So even this morning, for example, I already mentioned I'm a little bit on the nervous side. I have woken up with the hugest amount of anxiety, and generally, this is not something that I would struggle with. I'm not overly an anxious person. And I sometimes liken it to a bit of almost like an out of body experience looking in. There's been so many times when I've sat just kind of thinking about how I'm feeling and what I'm doing, and just thinking, what on earth is going on here? This isn't you. And that is why focusing in on habits during perimenopause and menopause, lifestyle habits and lifestyle medicines can be so empowering and important, because if we are able to bring back that little bit of control, and actually focus in on investing in ourselves and putting small, simple steps into our day to day, it can not only have real benefits in terms of our health, but it can also help us to feel much more like ourselves again. So, I'm going to just talk you through three elements that I work with my clients, and that hopefully will help you too. So the first one is around nutrition. So nutrition during perimenopause is not about strict diets. It's not about cutting out your favorite foods. It's not about obsessive tracking or anything like that. It's just about giving your body the things it needs to support your energy, which, let's face it, we know sometimes can dip when our hormones are out of sync, support our hormones, support our mood, support our sleep, and just generally support our overall well-being. Now, you've probably heard that protein is key, and we all hear eat more protein, eat more protein. But what does that look like? And why, basically? So, protein is really important, especially when we have hormone changes going on. It's really good at supporting our metabolism, our blood sugar level balance, our fullness, and it's also really important in terms of maintaining muscle mass, which is something that naturally depletes over time. So, in terms of a general rule around protein, there are no kind of exact rules that you have to follow. And for each individual, it will be different. But a helpful target for most women is to aim for 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. So in each of your three main meals, if you aimed for that, then you would certainly be getting, pretty close to a good solid amount of protein for you each day. Fats are also really important. I know sort of old school diet culture, we've been taught that fats are bad. They are not. They're actually very, very important in terms of managing our hormones and supporting our hormones. So, healthy fats like oily fish, avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds, dark chocolate, all those sorts of things are really important to keep in your diet. And then carbs as well. They are not the enemy, ladies. Please, please do make sure that you get some carbs in your diet. They are important for energy and also important for keeping our blood sugar levels nice and steady, which is, a really important thing in terms of kind of energy and well-being. Fiber is another element of the nutritional part of what I teach. It is a really important part of our diet. It helps to support our gut health and our digestion. Again, also blood sugar levels. And most of us do not eat enough protein, not protein, enough fiber in our diets. So the general guidance around fiber is 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. Because we have obviously access to a lot of sort of convenience foods, it is sometimes difficult to hit that. And you might find that you're hitting nowhere near that each day to begin with. If that is the case, don't go 0 to 100. Just increase it steadily. So, 2 to 3 grams extra, let your body adapt to that. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water and then just kind of gradually increase it from there. The final part around the nutrition element is around water. So obviously, I just mentioned having it alongside increased fiber. It is really important in terms of how your body functions overall. So things like energy, focus, digestion, like I mentioned, headaches, cravings. If we're not drinking enough water, we're not giving our body the best possible chance of doing the best possible job. So, aiming for 2 to 3 liters of water each day. Now, I appreciate that all of that seems like mammoth. What I would say is, as I go through these habits, please remember it has not got to be perfect. It's all about progress over perfection. Thinking about just choosing maybe one thing that you could input into your day, into your week, working on that, embedding that, and then thinking about how you can move things forwards from there. If we try and go from 0 to 100, it just becomes so overwhelming. And already we're feeling overwhelmed thanks to the hormones. So, yeah, please do not panic that I'm asking you or suggesting that you do all these things at once. So that's our first sort of habit as such, focusing in on nutrition. The second one is around movement. I'm sure you have all heard about daily steps. I'm sure you've all heard about strength training and the importance of that. But what does this actually look like for you? And does it mean that you have to spend hours and hours in the gym? In and amongst all of the beefy men in the weights area feeling super scared? No, the answer is no, just in case you were panicking. So there's different elements of movement. So the first one, that not all movement has to actually be exercise. There is something which is very scientific and fancy called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is abbreviated to NEAT. Essentially, that means any movement that you do in the day that is not exercise. So it's things like if you were on the phone, perhaps just walking up and down while you're talking, going up the stairs rather than taking the lift, getting out in the garden, dancing around your kitchen with your favorite music track on. Yes, I do sometimes do that. Any movement that you can put into your day is really important. Daily steps. Yes, it is good to increase your daily steps. However, the magic 10,000 steps is not really so magic. It actually came from, I think it was Japan, I think. It doesn't have to be 10,000. If you're tracking your steps and you notice that perhaps you're doing sort of 3 to 4,000 a day, just increase it to 5,000. Just do that little bit extra. And then when you've really embedded that, then you can think about potentially increasing it a little bit more. A good amount to aim for as a minimum is around 8,000. So if you can increase it to that, and then obviously anything you do above that is an absolute bonus. Exercising for enjoyment is absolutely key. If you are trying to do things that you don't enjoy, you are not going to stick to it. The best workout is the one that you actually like doing and that you are going to actually stick to, because otherwise it's just going to become very ad hoc and hit and miss. So find things that you like, find friends that you can go and do it with. We want movement and exercise to feel fun, not like a punishment. So, strength training, obviously, I have mentioned, it is important, and it's particularly important because as our estrogen levels decline, women naturally become more at risk of losing muscle mass and bone density. And strength training actually helps to protect both of those. That doesn't mean that you have to be a bodybuilder, or like I said, it doesn't mean that you have to be getting in there with all the beefy guys in the gym, unless you want to. You can do workouts at home. You can do workouts using body weight, resistance bands, just normal home gym equipment. But also, if you do have the confidence to get into the gym, then that's absolutely great. But definitely think about getting some strength training into your week to obviously promote that muscle health and bone health. The final thing in the kind of movement habit section is yoga, and sort of other calming exercises. Quite often, much like me today, we might experience anxiety, we might experience overwhelm, we might feel a bit on edge, we might feel a bit snappy, our thoughts might be a bit racy. All of those feelings are to do with our nervous system, and doing sort of more gentle forms of movement can be really calming to our nervous system. So things like yoga can really help to reduce our stress levels, ease that tension. Plus, also, it's very good for things like flexibility. It's going to have benefits in terms of sleep, benefits in terms of balancing our mood. And actually, there is some research into it potentially even helping with hot flushes. So sometimes just slowing down a little bit can be what your body needs. So that kind of nicely brings me into habit or top tip number 3. Now, this one for me is almost the biggest, most important one, because this one is very much encompassing everything else. So we've obviously touched on nutrition, we've touched on movement. This one is all around kind of mindset and well-being. So these are just as important as nutrition and movement when it comes to perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, all stages, because taking care of our brains, taking care of our emotional health is going to help us just to feel that little bit more calm, that little bit more balanced, and also for some people, that little bit more resilient, day to day in life. So I'm just going to talk through a few ways that you could potentially incorporate some of these techniques and strategies, and just things that you could kind of focus on. But again, I just want to reiterate, this is not about going from 0 to 100, trying to tick absolutely every single box. In all of the things that I've mentioned, pick one thing, something that you feel like is an easy win that is going to fit naturally into your life. You're going to be able to, practice it each day. And then when you feel confident that that's embedded, then you could potentially move on to incorporating something else. It's not a race. We want to make sure that this works for you and that you feel comfortable with it and that it has a positive impact on you and your life. So, first up is sleep. So, we all know how important sleep is. However, if you're anything like me, we're not very good at prioritizing it. I am very good at filling every single minute of every single day. But a good night's rest is so, so important in terms of our mood, our energy, weight management as well. When our bodies are under stress, our bodies are likely to hold more body fat. So if that's something that you're struggling with hormone change, sleep is going to be a game changer. It's really helpful in order to get that better sleep to start by thinking about just your bedtime routine. Obviously, we know the 7 to 8 hours kind of sort of aim as such in terms of guidance, but anything extra to what you're doing currently could be very beneficial. So even if you're managing to get another 10 minutes because you've managed to put a nice bedtime routine in place, that is going to be a great start. So around that, around sleep hygiene, think about how can you create a more calming bedtime routine that's going to enable you to go into kind of rest mode more easily. So things like avoiding screen time an hour before bedtime. That's going to help your brain to wind down. Thinking about just naturally kind of what you do before bed. So have you got a nice skincare routine maybe that's going to help you to kind of wind down, have a little bit of self-care? Could you maybe read a book rather than scrolling through your phone? We all know the dreaded scroll. So just think about little things that you could do that's going to enable you just to, get into that wind down zone. Aim for that sort of hour before bedtime and think about what you're doing there. So that's sleep. Stress levels as well. I know it's far easier said than done, but high stress can be really disruptive to our hormones. It can make some of our symptoms worse. It can make our sleep worse. Sometimes it actually can have an impact on things like hot flushes. So I know it's not easy, but just finding ways to help bring your stress levels down is just going to help you to feel that little bit more in control, that little bit more happy, and just generally more settled. So some of the ideas that you could implement into your day to day that could potentially help with that. One big one is nature. So I have heard people talk about this as vitamin N, vitamin nature. Spending time outdoors can have a real big impact on our general well-being. And one really good technique that you can use is using your senses. So go out for a little walk. It doesn't have to be long, even just 10 minutes, and actually purposefully notice the things that you see, the things that you hear, the things that you smell, the things that you can feel, and really kind of home your thought process into that. And maybe even if you can, leave your phone at home so you're not so tempted to pick it up. But yeah, spending time outside can have a really big positive impact on our general well-being and stress levels. Also, things like practicing daily gratitudes. Now, again, if you're anything like me, this is something that I thought, oh, it's a bit woo-woo for me. But it honestly is really beneficial. So it doesn't have to be that you're doing lots and lots of kind of positive reflections. It hasn't got to be paragraphs or anything like that. But just taking the time to notice in your day to day things that you are grateful for, things that you are thankful for. It can have a really big impact on shifting our mood, boosting positivity, creating a sense of calm. You can do this at any point in the day that works for you. There are no strict, hard and fast rules. So you could start your day by saying, today I am grateful for, or something like, today I will look for one thing that makes me smile. You could do it at the end of the day, reflecting on kind of what that day has looked like. Aim for maybe, 2 or 3 gratitudes. Just keep it nice and simple. Just it's a way of really, as I say, focusing in on the positives and just giving you that kind of little bit of a boost. Sort of hand in hand with that goes journaling. Again, it can seem like quite a sort of big scary thing. I don't know where to start. You can buy journaling journals. So they give you kind of prompts and questions and things like that. You could just have a notebook where you jot things down. You don't even have to write. It could be pictures. You could just draw a picture if you're particularly creative or artistic. It's just a way of giving you that little bit of time where you can write down any thoughts, feelings, positive things. And again, it's just something that's going to help to sort of promote clarity in your day, reduce stress. But yeah, anything that's in your head, pop it down. And as I say, it doesn't have to be complicated, just nice and simple, even just sort of like 2, 3 minutes maybe. And then my final sort of top tip around sort of mindset, well-being, etc., is meditation and breath work. Again, this was something that was a little bit alien to me to begin with, but actually just focusing in on slowing down our breath can be so impactful. It doesn't have to be complicated. There are all sorts of different breath works out there, but even a simple thing like just breathing in for a count of 5 and having a nice, slow, deep breath out for a count of 7, as long as the out breath is longer than the in breath, can have a really, really big positive impact on just how you're feeling. And particularly if you're feeling anxious or lacking perhaps in a little bit of focus, that can be a really supportive strategy. That you don't have to come up with things yourself. There's lots of advice on different kind of breathwork techniques online, and there are also apps. So things like Headspace and Calm, and I think there's one called Insight Timer as well. So yeah, just you don't have to make it up as you go along. There are things out there to help you. So yeah, just to kind of summarize, they are my 3 sort of habits, I guess, to support you with your hormone changes during perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So we've got obviously focusing in on nutrition, focusing in on just day-to-day movement, and also that mindset and well-being element. All of these things are just going to enable you to just feel like you've got that little bit more control back, and help to, promote a more positive kind of day to day. Thank you, Julie.
Wow, Carly, that was amazing. It was absolutely jam-packed with brilliant advice. And I really love that you talked about the small wins and not going from 0 to 60, because it's really, really important if we want to sustain anything to do something small consistently and then build upon that. So that's so brilliant. I do have one question, and it's about water. You said that ideally drinking 2 to 3 liters a day. Now, I just want you to clarify, are you talking about pure water? I'm talking about just straight water, or are you talking about water that goes in a green tea or a herbal tea, or can you actually clarify that?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and it's something that I get asked a lot. You can include water from any drink that you drink, essentially. Obviously, if you were living purely on coffee, I would recommend getting a little bit more just like plain water in. We don't want to be living off coffee, but you absolutely can incorporate water that you have in other drinks as well. But yeah, a total of 2 to 3 liters. And some people don't like water, so adding a little bit of sort of flavored squash, or you can even buy like the sugar-free flavored waters and things like that. All of that counts.
Brilliant. Thank you for clarifying that. So, for those of you watching or listening, if you have really resonated and found that helpful, then why not share this video? Carly's links will be down below in the description, as will mine. So, check her out, get in touch, ask a question. You can absolutely tell she knows her stuff. So, thank you so, so much, Carly. And thank you, everyone else, for watching. And please do subscribe.